Let's say we have a collection of datas and we want to loop through the collection and output the values separately. Then we are going to need the X4 to do that. For example, let's say we are going to create an to-do list app. So in that case, when the user inputs a task or to-do item, then it is going to get into a collection of list or items. Then we are going to loop through that or iterate through that collection. Then we are going to output the separate to-do list or to-do items. In this cases we are going to use the X4. If you are familiar with JavaScript, then you already know what this is and what an array is. So an array is basically a JavaScript data type like variables, booleans. So array is a different type of data. So let's see. But before getting into that, there are actually two rules we need to follow to use the X4 by using alpine. So we cannot actually declare the X4 or use the X4 directive on a div or paragraph tag or anything like that. We need to use a template tag to do that. And also inside the template tag there will be only on root element. So if you want to create multiple elements, then if you need that like multiple elements, then you should have wrap everything out by using a div. So in that case it will work. So now let's create a simple array and loop through that. I'm just going to create a div, or let's use a list item, another list. So I'm going to declare this another list as an alpine component by giving it a x data, and this data here will contain our array. So in order to write an array, I'm just going to push it at the below line. Okay, so let's say we want an array named numbers and we need the colon, and the array will always be covered with an third bracket or this type of bracket. So inside it we can put our values in array. So let's in this case we are going to use number. We don't need to use the double quotation. That's only for the string value like on, and let's say 2 3 4. Now we got an array named numbers, and inside the array we got 4 separate array components, or in this case the numbers, and we are going to loop through this array with the name of numbers and display it separately like on 2 3 4. Okay, so let's do that. Let's say we got a list item, and inside the list item we are going to display it. So in order to do that, we at first need to declare the template. With m8 we cannot do that, so we have to do it manually. Okay, now we got our template tag, and we can only declare the X4 with a template tag. So let's do that, X4, and the syntax is very simple. Like in this case, this is the collection of data and we need a name for a single value. So in most of the cases where this is kind of plural like numbers, we can actually use the number as a short form. You can use whatever you want, it doesn't matter. So let's say number in numbers. So this is the name of the array, and this will get each of the values separately, and then this is going to kind of repeat this again and again. So it is going to start from on, and the number will have a value of on, then this is going to again repeat itself and it will get the value of 2, and kind of like that. So we can actually use the X4, sorry, X text, because this is a text. X text will be this number. Let's save. Now we got on 2 3 4. So it actually doesn't matter, you can use kind of x, and this is actually going to work. It doesn't matter whatever name you are going to give this, but this is going to get the single value from the arrays. So this is how it actually works. This is going to loop through every single item and output it. Okay, so this is a simple example here. Now We can also have the access to the index of the item, and in JavaScript, in PHP and every other programming languages, they actually start the counting from 0. So in this case we got 1 2 3 4. So the first one will have an index of 0, the second one will have index of 1, the third one will have index of 2, and so on. Okay, so let's create a div and let's give this a x data so we can create our own. Let's say we want a array of like fruits, so we are going to add some fruits name. Okay, let's put some name of the fruits like apple, banana, berry, and let's also use the mango. Okay, now we got a collection of fruits name and it got the name of the fruits. The array name is fruits, so let's use the template. Template. Okay, inside the template we can use our x for to loop through that. And before we have used the fruits like fruit in fruits or anything like that, but in order to get the index we need to do things a little bit different. Like in the bracket here we are going to use two value, like fruit, which will contain the single value here like apple, banana, and the second one we should put a comma here, and the second one we can, this is the index value, so I'm just going to use index. Also you can use whatever you want, it doesn't matter. The second one in here will always contain the index value no matter what name you have given them. So in the name of the array, which is fruits, now we have got access to the fruit and also the index. Now we can use an span tag to kind of output that. Let's use the x text and output the index, and let's just copy this, and thus for the second line let's use the fruit name. So now we got two different elements inside the template and it is not going to work. If we save this, we can see the 1 2 3 4 as an index because this is the first element and this is going to work, but we cannot see any fruit name in here because the second rule was that template element will only have on root element. So now what we can do is we can actually wrap everything up with a div tag. So now we will have on single root element. I'm just going to run the beautify. Okay, now we got only on root element inside the template tag. Now it is going to work fine. We can use a colon in here to separate it. So the first one here is going to get the index, and index start from 0. Like I said, the first one here will be index 0, on, 2, 3, and like that. Okay, let's see the next example. So we can actually go through a range of values, like let's say we want to output the value from 0 to 10. We can do that by using the for loop in JavaScript, and we can also do that by using the x_for with alpine. So let's create a another list and make this an alpine component by giving it a x data. We don't need any values in here, so I'm just going to keep that empty. Now let's use the template tag, and inside the template tag we are going to run our x_for. This is the most used syntax, I, and I in, let's say we want to go through 0 to 7. Okay, now in order to output that, you know how to do. We can use the list item and use the x text to output the value of I. Let's save, and it is going to output on to 7. You can also output on to 10 very easily. So this is the shortcut syntax for looping through a range of values. I'm just going to comment this out, also this one. Okay, now let's get into a little bit complex array, like the associative array. The associative array is basically an array containing JavaScript objects. So in here Like in the previous example, let's talk about the first one. We got a simple array. Now we got a value here. In this case, this is integer. In the second one, this is the string. Let's say we want an object in here. So we want an array containing objects, and we can also do that. So let's create a div, and inside it, let's make it alpine component and create an associative array. So let's name it peoples. Okay, people. This is going to be the same, the third bracket, and inside it, instead of just putting our value or maybe kind of putting a string or number, we can use an object. So we already know that the JavaScript objects kind of get wrapped with the curly braces, and now we can put our own separate values in here. Let's say we want a object containing ID, the name of the person, and the profession of the person. So let's give the first person an ID of on. Let's also give him a name like John, and because as this is a string, we need to put the quotation mark all around it, because JavaScript strings got a quotation. Let's also add a profession. Let's say he is a designer. Okay, we got an object. Now let's put a comma and just copy it. So I'm just going to change the value, like the second one will have a ID of 2, the third one will have a ID of 3. Let's also change the value for the name. Okay, let's also change the profession, like developer, or the third one, let's add teacher. Okay, now we got an associative array named people, and it got 3 objects, and each of the objects contain an ID number, a name, and a profession. Now we have basically the access of everything in here, like the ID name, the name, and the profession. So let's use a template tag. Now we need to use a div, because we are going to output each of the items, and we need to only have on root element, and that's why we are going to use the div here. Now let's iterate through the array by using the x4, and inside the x4 it will be like person. I'm just going to use the person as a single name here in the array name, which is people in this case. Now we got the access to ID, name, profession. So how we are going to access it? Okay, this is very simple. Let's use the x text in here, and now the single name, which is the person, which will give us the access to single item or single object inside the array. Now if you want to target a specific values in here, like the ID here, we need to put a dot and use that. So we got the ID name. Let's also grab the name of the person, so it will be dot name. Let's also add the profession. I'm just going to put a colon in here. So after that, let's just copy this again, and now we want the profession. Let's just save, but before saving it, I'm just going to remove the colon. Let's save. Now we have the ID here, which is on, and name of the person, and also the profession. But there is a little bit issue in here. So the Alpine suggests that we use an key to actually give them that a specific ID. So it is not actually very required, but it may cause problems sometimes. So it is actually safe to use a key bind here. So it is kind of like x bind. This is the shortcut for x bind and key. We can give this a person.id. So this is actually the index of the person, but in associative arrays we are actually going to modify the default index. Okay, in here you can see that the index got a value starting from 0 on to 3, and this is the default indexing value. but in associative arrays we are actually going to kind of alter the default index. So in these cases the alpine will have problem to track the arrays or the objects. That's why we are just going to bind a key with our own IDs or index. So this is it. This is not actually too much to worry about. Just use a bind key and give this ID, so you will be safe down the way. So alpine will not have any problems for you. Okay, so this is everything about X4 and looping through the arrays. We are going to talk about this in details in the project section, so where we are going to create our to-do list app and everything. So see you in the next video.